Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. As mentioned on our program today, Peter Chappell. Peter was born in Manitoba, Canada, moved to New York City at age 18. He served 4 years in the U.S. Army during World War II, 2 years overseas in the Persian Gulf Transport Command. He attended UCLA under the GI Bill of Rights. Since 1951, has been a resident of Santa Monica, California. Home improvement, landscaping have been his main hobbies, he says, primarily of necessity. Peter has been married happily for 40 years. He's the author of several books, and on This Week in America today, we'll be talking about his memoir, Having the Time of My Life. Peter Chappell, our guest on the program. Peter, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Well, thank you. I feel privileged to be talking with you.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you on the program, and there's so many interesting aspects of your life. And you said it was a memoir of an average man in our blessed land of the free. At what point did you decide, I've had an interesting life, I'm going to sit down and put it on paper and put it in book form? How did that whole book thing come about?
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I was driving, I had a place in the Redwoods, the Santa Cruz Mountains, and for 45 years, every month, I drove there and back again. That's about 370 miles each way. So, because it was a rundown shack when I bought it, but there were 7 acres of redwoods. And so in driving that distance, and which took me almost 7 hours, I decided there for a couple of years to be creative. And so I started to create song lyrics which came to me simultaneously with a melody. And so after I thought my creativity was exhausted, I gave it up. But a few years later, I decided, what I've been able to put down in my song lyrics, in lyric form, there are a lot of things in it that were based on my life. And so I thought I may as well put down, if for no other reason but for my sake and for my family, the history of my family and mine. And so that's how it evolved.
Well, it's fascinating. The musical vein runs throughout the memoir. Also, the book is Having the Time of My Life, which is available at Amazon. And you can log on to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on and get information on the book as well. It's filled with letters and photos and original song lyrics, as you mentioned. And let's go back to those early days because they're fascinating. You really had a close-knit family, didn't you? And a large one.
There were. My mother had 13 children. 2 died at infancy, and 11 grew up to adulthood. I was the 10th among my siblings. So, and of course, I had a rather misfortunate coming out to life. You see, my parents were pioneers in Canada, raw pioneers. They started about 1900, and so when the day I was born, my father was away as a harvest hand in the grain fields of Sewers, Manitoba, Canada. My mother, maintained with the older children, the farm. We had, a few cows and a couple of horses. And so early in the morning, on the day of my birth, my mother took her milk pail to the stable to feed the animals and also to milk the cows. when she got through with that, she stepped out of the, of the stable, and what confronted her as a house aflame. Well, you see, it was early in the morning, and October the 25th, in Canada at that time, you usually had snow and pretty cold weather. So my mother, before she went to do the chores, she started a fire in the kitchen range, and we had a sheet metal heating stove in the big room, which was a living room and also a bedroom for the children too.
Yeah, for all the kids.
Yeah, and so, but you see, to warm up the place quickly, she used kindling wood from spruce trees, and also she not only used it to start the fire, but she loaded the stove so it would warm up the house by the time she got to the house. But you see, the dry spruce, has a lot of rosin in it, and it will burn furiously. So you see, and sparks went up the roof, and you see, the house had a thatched roof. Hay used to thatch the roof.
Yes.
And, of course, you see the sparks landed on the roof, and the fire started. And by the time she was finished with the chores in the stable, the house was pretty well, taken over by the fire. But my mother rushed quickly, dropped her pail, and rushed quickly to save the children. Well, anyhow, every child is saved, and that, very soon after that, she started her labor pains. So whether I was born prematurely or, well, probably prematurely, you see, I would not breastfeed. I was the only child of the 13 children that refused to breastfeed, so there must have been something that affected her breast.
Yes.
Milk.
Well, that's a real entryway into the world. Our guest on This Week in America is Peter Chappell, author of the book, his memoir, Having the Time of My Life, an excellent book, very well reviewed. Joining us on This Week in America, information on the book, which is available at Amazon. You can find information and a link on it at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. I want to talk about the relationship with Ann Miller, the famous actress. But before that, I want to go back to your mother. You've got a letter in your book from your mother, and there really was a special bond, wasn't there? She was a special person in your life.
Well, yes, she was a very special person to all the children, and friends and relatives. She was a wonderful person. Yes. You see, there were so many children in the family, and in pioneering days, I was still a part of the early pioneering days. There was no time to converse too much, with your parents, because it was always chores. The parents, had endless chores, and so every child had to help with the chores. So when I discovered, when I was already living in Santa Monica, my sister who lived in Berwyn, Illinois, to see me with her two adopted children in the summer of 1952. After about 2 weeks at my home, we received a telegram from my sister in Winnipeg telling us that Mother had exploratory surgery in Winnipeg, Misericordia Hospital, and prognosis was very unfortunate, that she had maybe 6 months to go. So my sister Marion, and with the two children, they're about maybe 1 and 3 years old, we decided we'd take the bus and go from Santa Monica, travel by Greyhound from Santa Monica to Winnipeg to see, Mother, because everybody loved Mother. And so it was quite a hectic bus trip.
How long did that take you by bus?
Well, of course, it was almost 3,000 miles.
Yes.
So it was, we slept on the bus, but anyhow, it was very well worth it. So anyhow, when I returned home, I decided to write to my mother and ask her if she could, write down some of her, life's experiences. And so, she didn't have too much time, but she was educated in Warsaw, but an area called Malopolska, which is a part of the original Poland. But we're of Polish and Ukrainian origin. But anyhow, let's see, I get carried away with my...
Well, it's an interesting story. So your mother then responds to you, and in a very moving letter, which is featured in the book, Having the Time of My Life. Peter Chappell is our guest on the program. There are so many things, American heritage in the book. It's really a look back and a look forward as well, a current look. It's excellent. It's available at Amazon. Information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. A few minutes left in the program, and we're going to have Peter back in the show to talk about another book he's written called Impressions and Reflections. But I would like to talk about the Ann Miller situation, famous actress known all across the country, and your relationship with her, which goes back before she was even Ann Miller, correct?
Oh, yes. I didn't really, I wasn't sure that it was Ann Miller till about 6 or 7 years later. But I suspected, because she kept her identity, secret. But it was not her real identity. It was a pseudonym that she used because when I knew her, she was a student at Marymount-on-the-Hudson in Tarrytown, New York. But every Saturday she'd come to New York in the morning, and as a student, I assumed that she just came to town to see a movie or whatever. But you see, at the same time, I realized later that she was starring in George White's Scandals on Broadway. And, that was all, secret from me.
Yes.
But I'd known her for about 7 months, and we corresponded, and we saw each other almost every Saturday, and on the St. Patrick's Day weekend, we had several dates that were very significant, and something one would want to remember or would remember practically all your life, because because, it was a strong bonding between the two of us.
Well, yeah, you had a relationship with her, and then when she went on to become Ann Miller, the very famous Ann Miller, but it was difficult, and she wouldn't acknowledge this relationship. There's sort of that mystery there, wasn't there?
Well, you see, she told me when she was Patricia Smith, the pseudonym, that she had a friend. You see, I was 20 years old at that time, and she told me she was 20, but actually I said, because I had 6 sisters, younger and older than myself, I didn't. I said, I would say you're about 17 years old. Years later, I discovered that was her age at that time. But let's see what. Well, anyhow, she told me she had a friend, and she showed me his picture in a heart-shaped locket that she was wearing. She said they came to get his address from her. No one else knew it. And so she had a very guilty conscience about what happened to that young man, whether he was killed or beat up so badly that she said, people have been hurt because of me. People's lives have been ruined because of me. I must never, ever try to get in touch with her. If she should leave, or she should let me know that she's leaving. And of course, the time came where she sent me a note saying by the time that I'd read her note, she'd be far, far away, and I must never, ever try to get in touch with her, when we must never, ever see each other again. So it was not a put-on thing. She was very afraid, probably, of what might happen to me if she was discovered knowing somebody outside of who she was permitted to see.
Well, the story unravels in the book, Having the Time of My Life. It's a great mystery. It was excellent reading that and trying to piece together this mystery, like you, trying to figure out exactly what had happened. Out of time on this particular program, but Peter will be back with us to talk about another book that he's written called Impressions and Reflections. This book has been praised for its wisdom. We're talking about a piece of pop culture that is no longer there, a time after World War II in the United States. A great reflection. The book is called Having the Time of My Life. It's an excellent read. It's filled, as I mentioned, with letters, with photos, original song lyrics. We'll talk about that more when Peter is back with us on the program. Peter, it's been great to have you with us on the show. Stay warm in Santa Monica, and I'm sure that you will, and we look forward to having you back on the program.
Well, thank you.
The book is, again, Having the Time of My Life. It's available at Amazon.com, and you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on to get direct information on the book. Our guest on the program has been Peter Chappell. He will be back with us. The book we're talking about is Having the Time of My Life. You're listening to This Week in America. Website, thisweekinamerica.us.